History has a way of repeating itself in the most unexpected ways. Who could have imagined that in the 21st century, during the Russian-Ukrainian War, the same region that witnessed one of history's greatest tank clashes of World War II could once again appear on the map of global battles? Historians and military theorists always debate whether past battles can be repeated under modern conditions, so today we'll take this unique opportunity to explore the differences between the Battle of Kursk in 1943 and the current Ukrainian operation. We should note that our interest lies exclusively in analyzing the course of the battle and the decisions of the commanders, excluding broader offensive operations and the interests of governments. The Kursk bulge in the Soviet lines was a tempting opportunity for Germans. This 150-mile-wide protrusion could bring significant strategic gains. By eliminating the salient, the Germans would not only shorten the front line, but also free up 18 to 20 divisions for operations elsewhere. It was a daring plan that faced enormous challenges, especially given Russia's overwhelming numerical advantage. The German forces deployed around 900,000 soldiers, nearly 3,000 tanks, and 10,000 artillery pieces. In contrast, the Soviets amassed over 1.9 million troops, backed by approximately 5,000 tanks and 25,000 artillery pieces. The disparity is clear. Still, the Germans aimed to encircle the Kursk salient with a two-pronged assault from the north and south, intending to crush Soviet forces trapped within, and they almost made it. Planning for Operation Citadel began in March 1943, with the German High Command carefully weighing the timing and execution of the offensive. The goal was to strike before the Soviets could launch their own summer offensive. The Germans fortified key positions and airfields and concentrated their panzer divisions on the flanks of the salient, poised to launch a two-pronged assault as soon as the spring thaw ended. The German army brought not only a formidable infantry arsenal, but also a lineup of their most advanced tanks, hoping to break through Soviet defenses. On the armored front, Germany fielded some of its most potent tanks, the Panzer V Panther and Panzer VI Tiger. These machines had high firepower but unreliable power units. The engine could break down right in the middle of a battle. Additionally, these tanks were rare for the Wehrmacht at that time, with only 300 units in existence. The Panthers faced mechanical issues, with several catching fire while climbing hills. The Ferdinand tank destroyer, despite its thick armor and powerful gun, also suffered from mechanical unreliability and lack of mobility. Supporting these were the more numerous Panzer IVs and Panzer IIIs, which formed the backbone of the German armored divisions. The Stug 3 assault guns and Stu 42, equipped with 105mm howitzers, provided additional firepower for infantry support and anti-tank roles. Due to manpower shortages, exacerbated by heavy casualties and the decision to create new divisions rather than strengthen existing ones, German units were under strength. The Soviet forces, on the other hand, relied heavily on their numerical advantage over German tanks and deployed a formidable array of armed combat vehicles. The T-34-76, with its sloped armor and mobility, was the workhorse of the Soviet tank forces and one of the most effective tanks of the war. The KV-1, though slower, provided heavy armor that could withstand hits from most German anti-tank weapons. Supporting these were the lighter T-60 and T-70 tanks, which, though less powerful, were produced in large numbers and used effectively in reconnaissance and support roles. The Soviets also fielded the ISU-122 and ISU-152 self-propelled guns. They were equipped with exceptionally large caliber guns, 122mm and 152mm, respectively. The Russians believed that these guns could penetrate the armor of German tanks and fortifications when firing directly. Additionally, these self-propelled guns were a clear expression of the Soviet commanders' logic, who preferred to rely on sheer firepower rather than on sophisticated battlefield tactics. And then, by April 1943, the battle reached its turning point. The Soviet Army intelligence captured a German prisoner who revealed the exact time of the planned German offensive. In response, Soviet artillery struck just 15 minutes before the Germans were set to advance. This immediately disrupted the Wehrmacht's plans, causing the Germans to lose the initiative, which the Soviet forces then quickly seized with Soviet artillery corps boasted over 1,500 tubes and Katyusha rocket launchers. Relying on overwhelming firepower, numerical superiority in tanks, and the fortunate seizure of initiative from the Germans, the Soviet defense in the north, under the command of General Rokossovsky, was particularly successful. Even in the south, where the Germans initially had an advantage under the skilled command of Field Marshal Manstein, the Soviets managed to contain the assault. Although this area saw the highest concentration of new German equipment and faced Soviet missteps, including unfortunate friendly fire incidents, the Soviet strategy ultimately held firm. The Germans, having placed all their faith in their new tanks, found themselves without adequate reserves once the main force was broken. As the battle wore on, Kursk became, in the words of one historian, the graveyard of the great panzer armies. Just like in 1943, in 2024, both sides rely heavily on maneuverable armored groups, all while grappling with severe logistical challenges on the Russian and Ukrainian fronts. Though unlike 1943, the offensive strategy in the Kursk region has become a stunning military success, with Ukrainian forces capturing 280 square miles, including 44 settlements, in just 7 days, contrasting sharply with Russia's slower advances. The Russians, having invaded in February 2022, had not anticipated that Ukraine would turn the tables and strike back. As Ukrainian combat medics quietly moved into the remote Sumy region just days before the invasion, the Kremlin remained oblivious to the looming threat. Spearheaded by Colonel General Oleksandr Syrsky, transformed a previously quiet front into a flashpoint of intense conflict. The decision to strike in Kursk, a region unscathed by heavy fighting for over 2 years, was as brilliant as it was unexpected. Ukrainian forces, supported by fast-moving U.S. Stryker and German Marder armored vehicles, surged across the border with lightning speed, their presence marked by white triangles painted on their vehicles. The precision of Ukraine's HIMARS rocket artillery played a pivotal role, particularly in the destruction of a Russian convoy deep inside Kursk, underscoring the effectiveness of Ukraine's weaponry compared to Russia's sluggish response. Additionally, a series of coordinated attacks with Neptune cruise missiles and both air and sea strike drones inflicted significant damage on key infrastructure, further crippling Russia's logistical capabilities. This offensive is a major gamble, especially since Russia dominates much of the front line in Ukraine and has made significant inroads in the east. If Ukrainian troops are able to hold territory, they could stretch the capacity of Russian troops, deliver a major embarrassment for Mr. Putin, and get a bargaining chip for any peace negotiations. But if Russia manages to push Ukrainian troops out of Kursk and simultaneously move forward in eastern Ukraine, Ukrainian military leaders could be blamed for giving the Russians an opening to gain more ground, particularly in the Donetsk region. During World War II, the Soviets used deep defense to wear down the Germans. Today, both sides employ hit-and-run tactics, relying heavily on surprise and mobility. Today's battlefield at Kursk blended older tank models with advanced technology. The Russian T-90 and Ukrainian T-64 or T-80BV tanks are modern descendants of those World War II machines, but they operate in a world where drones or missiles can deliver pinpoint strikes from miles away. That is why Russian tanks, in the last 2 years of the war, preferred to fire from well beyond the range of any anti-tank strike. Such tactics they actually learned from Ukrainians' tank crews, who trained to operate this way back in 2021 in the Donbass region. In a way, we can state that the Kursk operation started despite technological advances. Up until the Kursk operation, it was believed that the dominance of drones on the battlefield and the availability of commercial satellite images had made any offensive operation, especially one involving active use of armored vehicles, impossible. But as it turned out, that wasn't the case. Ironically, the tactics of using tanks in modern warfare hasn't changed compared to World War II. The only noticeable difference is that tank duels have become rare, as both sides focus on halting the enemy before a tank battle can even start. As this modern battle for Kursk unfolds, one question looms large. Will the lessons from 1943 be enough to secure victory, or are we witnessing the dawn of a new era in warfare? What does this battle mean for the future of Ukraine? Share your thoughts in the comments.